Hello guys, today we'll talk about sequels. I already made my rant about how people might be starting to get sick of sequels, and judging based off the most recent box office, I think that's kind of true. We don't need another Tom and Jerry movie, considering the fact there's already 30 already existing. But this way put it most it. A lot of franchises, a lot of sequels have done pretty well. Despite Hollywood's attempt to bring back a lot of old 80s and 90s series, or just big franchises in general, let's look at the new failures like Space Avenue Legacy and G.I. Joe Origins, well, there have been some bright spots in the sequel bandwagon. Again, and we talk about the bright spots here. And of course, let's add Taste and bandwagon in a nutshell. New franchises, even though they're being spawned up by series that are already established, these movies have done pretty well, have done well enough to warrant themselves to get even if they're already established characters or already established series, they can still do pretty well. The first movie we're gonna talk about is Sonic. Sonic came out last year at the beginning of the year, before the COVID pandemic began. Sonic made $304 million. Again, that is the rigs. Sonic was doing pretty well in terms of it was doing always with rigs. And of course, until the pandemic hit, and yep, this is what happened to Sonic because of the pandemic. But Sonic made $304 million worldwide, based off a $90 million budget, which is the same as Birds of Prey. Sonic has made like $100 million at the box office or something like that, and best comparison is Birds of Prey. But again, Sonic is getting a sequel next year, and I think this is more proof that you can make new franchises out of already existing series and IPs. Sonic is considered by many the best video game adaptation ever made. Again, that isn't. Some people will say, "Oh, but that isn't a contest." But video game movies have significantly improved over the years. Yes, we're always gonna have our duds like Monster Hunter, but I think video game-based movies have been doing much better over the years. Sonic, I think, is proof of that, and the newer Mortal Kombat movie is also proof of that. Video game movies have gotten much better as movie studios have finally started to understand their source material. Sonic, yeah, it looked like a generic movie at first when people first saw it, but this movie was actually pretty good. A lot of people like this movie. A lot of people like Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. I think probably out of every Dr. Robotnik in history, Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik probably has to be the best one, and it was the perfect choice for him. Number 2 is Jumanji. So Jumanji is now basically a household name. Just as big as other franchises like the Avengers and... No, not as big as the Avengers and Marvel, but one of the biggest movie juggernauts out there. Jumanji is a massive movie series now. Why is Jumanji such a massive movie series? And that is because of the sets of Jumanji The Next Level and Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. These movies make a ton of money. The Next Level made $800 million at the box office, and Welcome to the Jungle did extremely well. These movies also released during the holidays, so they have just amazing rigs. I actually originally predicted this movie would make $1 billion, but it didn't for some reason. Considering that the first movie was so well received by fans, especially. But again, it did slightly worse, which typically sequels to successful movies usually do. But it doesn't really matter because this movie was very much well received, just like the first movie. It still made a respectable $800 million worldwide. And yet, the box office was cut short because of the pandemic. It will probably make $320 million at the box office, which is already pretty impressive. The next movie I can definitely tell you is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is one of the most well-received Spider-Man movies in history. Fans of both sides of Spider-Man spectrum, which I know we all know who we're talking about, Tobey Maguire fanboys and MCU, fanboys. Basically, most Spider-Man fans agree this is one of the not best Spider-Man movies of all time. And most people are like, really? Another Spider-Man movie? It's not even an animated movie? And people didn't really have high hopes for this movie, considering that Sony also made the Emoji Movie. And yeah, we all know when you make a pile of garbage before you make a masterpiece, people don't want to see your next movie because you made a pile of garbage before that. You can't really make the Emoji Movie a masterpiece. It's just not gonna happen. But the Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse is getting a sequel and a spin-off as well. And this movie did like the Sonic movie, basically. And I think the second sequel will probably do far better, considering how well the first movie did. It also is directly competing with the Sonic sequel, which the movies are actually I don't think it's competing. I think it's releasing far from it. I think it's releasing in October, so they're not competing with each other. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is based off, of course, Spider-Man, obviously. And they took a character that was already overdone and actually put a fresh spin on it. Speaking of superheroes, we're going to talk about Joker. Joker is considered one of the best DC movies of all time. Not even joking here, and that's not even a pun. Joker is considered a masterpiece of acting and character development and character study. It was a new spin on the classic Joker character that everybody loved. And judging based off this box office, millions of people loved this movie. And that was, of course, about that pesky China either. Even though people are sick of sequels, if a reboot, sequel, or a remake, or a franchise film does well against Joker, that is still a part of the DC franchise, the DC banner, you can still have a pretty good and a massive and great movie, despite already using established characters. Even though Joker has appeared in many movies before, this is considered one of the best portrayals of the famous character. The next movie is Jurassic World. Jurassic World was the reboot of Jurassic Park. And unlike the Star Wars sequel trilogy, Jurassic World has done pretty well. I don't really care for Fallen Kingdom again. I have not seen it in a while. I might rewatch it again someday, and my opinion might change on it like overnight. But Jurassic World, the reboot of the Jurassic series, Jurassic Park franchise, was amazingly successful. It was amazingly successful. It still is one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Yes, some people may do not like this movie, but considering the fact that they brought back Jurassic Park, a franchise that is mostly, has been with mostly been misses, with the exception of the phenomenal first film that I think everybody agrees is one of the greatest movies and definitely the greatest dinosaur movie of all time, especially especially considering the competition. Well, Jurassic World brought newer fans and older fans back to Jurassic World, basically, and now we have Jurassic Park back. Again, it actually is confirmed that Jurassic Park World, or that Jurassic Park 4, was in development hell, which, hey, you have to get it out someday, and they finally did come out with it in 2015. The next movie is actually the collection of movies. Is Pixar sequels. I know people rag on sequels, but Pixar, I think, with the reception of the Cars franchise, has done basically the sequel format perfectly. Yes, there are some people who are going to rag on Finding Dory and The Incredibles 2, but most of Pixar's sequels have done pretty well. The best example of this is the Toy Story series. I've not seen Toy Story 4. I might see it in the future, but the Toy Story franchise, I think, is basically a prime example of, why we gain a third and fourth movie, but despite this franchise has not been slowing down. Yes, Toy Story 4 did slightly better than Toy Story 3, but the movie was still successful among fans. And despite there being 4 Toy Story movies, they sort of ended on a trilogy and moved down to 4 original projects or spin-offs, which they're now doing spin-offs now. But it seems that even with Toy Story being a 2-decade-old franchise and not really needing any more sequels, it seems that fans have really loved all 4 movies. It really just shows the test of time of Pixar's magic, which Disney still has not yet to copy. They have some successful movies, but they have not really done as well as Pixar. I was going to put Star Wars on this list, but we all know how the sequel trilogy went. Yep. sequel trilogy, garbage. Solo flopped. Rogue One flopped. They tried to bring back Star Wars, but they ruined it, of course, because they're stupid. Disney's stupid for doing that, but one major success over the past decade is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, yes, it is slowing down. With I think everybody know, not Space Jam and New Legacy. It is slowing down at the advent of newer movies. Not many people really caring about newer Marvel movies. But it seems that Marvel still has a pretty big fan base still there. And of course, Black Widow might be the exception of box office performances, as according to many sources, Black Widow did extremely well on Disney Plus, making $140 million on Disney Plus, basically. Which means, yes, the poor theater performance is because of Disney Plus, not because of Get Woke, Go Broke, or whatever bullshit the Phantom Menace is going to pull. And even look at the advertisements for Black Widow. They're all for Disney Plus, not the theaters. So it's really Disney's fault the movie underperformed the theaters, as they really advertised the movie for Disney Plus. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel was an unknown name outside of comic nerds and Spider-Man, and the occasional Hulk movie. This is Marvel now. Marvel characters, which used to be obscure like Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, have now become household names. They turned characters that nobody knew about, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, into household names, Ant-Man, and many more characters. Characters that people didn't really give a crap about, and only characters they knew were Spider-Man and the X-Men. They turned all these other characters into household names, basically. And this can also extend to the actually, Deadpool was already popular before the Deadpool movie came out, but Marvel, all we have to do is owe it to the earlier Marvel movies. We're talking about this decade, and the beginning of this decade is when Marvel really started to take off. Yes, the first movies was when there were a lot of duds at the beginning, like Thor and Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, which came out 2008, not 2010. But Iron Man 2, 4, and First Avenger not really being the most well-received Marvel movies compared to the newer movies. And while the newer movies were not very well received, such as Captain Marvel, Black Widow, and Far From Home, compared to the golden age of Marvel, which I consider basically the Winter Soldier all the way up until Endgame, with a few black sheep here and now and there, like Captain Marvel. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have movies of characters that nobody has heard of before, or have not really been popular before, like Captain Marvel and Black Panther. Movies based on characters that basically nobody knows. I think people knew about Black Panther before Civil War, because of Civil War, but nobody knew who Captain Marvel was, and her movie still made $1 billion. So, yes, Marvel, if you don't want to die out, you should stop making good movies again, and stop making movies based on dead characters. But this is just massive. The Marvel Cinematic Universe turned Marvel from a fledgling property to a massive, global, worldwide success, and now is the highest grossing movie franchise in all of history. Not even joking here either. The highest grossing the movie series in all of history. That is no joke there. And yes, Hollywood has its problems with sequels, reboots, and remakes, and 2021 is no different than that. Hollywood keeps bringing back all these franchises. People are like, really? Why? Why do we need another Spirit movie or G.I. Joe movie? But if we really look at some of the biggest success in Hollywood's history has been sequels and reboots that quote-unquote people never asked for. So the real question is, people just want good sequels and good movies, not really bad sequels. And that is it. That is it about this video. So sequels, we're gonna see if they can successfully bring back movies like The Matrix and stuff. So yes, Hollywood, and I can bring up more, like Planet of the Apes trilogy, the new Planet of the Apes trilogy that came out. I'd even mention that. The Disney live-action remakes, yes, people despise them, but they still have been successful among general audiences. Bad Boys for Life coming out and being the most successful movie of 2020, which isn't really saying much because of, the pandemic, and many more books and TV series being revived and doing pretty well among fans and being well received among fans of those book series and and TV series. For example, Alita Battle Angel and Downtown Abbey in 2019 alone. So, yes, people might hate the bad adaptations, the bad sequels, and the unnecessary sequels, or the sequels that people just don't want to see. But there have been lots of movies that have come out that have been massively successful. Yeah, despite being a sequel, despite being a remake or a reboot, was massively successful. And Hollywood has been making pointless sequels and reboots for decades. This stuff has only been pointed out in recent years because of the internet. In the 90s, for example, there were tons of sequels. For example, there was a sequel to Speed, Caddyshack, and several movies that nobody liked. A sequel to The Mask Without Jim Carrey. So pointless Hollywood sequels are the norm. And the only reason why is because now there have been long-standing franchises, which this has been more noticeable. And yep, that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.